Welcome back to Living in Lakeland. It's 2023. Are you guys excited?
Happy New Year.
New year, new me.
Okay, so we have a guest today. First of all, I'm Elizabeth Willers with eXp Realty and the Willers Homes team, and I have with me.
Carly Bruder.
And then we have a special guest. His name is Jonathan Roby. He's with NRL Mortgage, and he happens to have a satellite office at our eXp branch office. So introduce yourself, Jonathan.
Well, first, thanks for having me. Super excited to be a part of this. So Jonathan Roby, I'm here a lot of the time now that the new year has started, so I'm excited to meet a lot of your clients more and more. But I specialize in making the dream of homeownership a reality.
Making a dream come true. And of course, Carly is the buyer's agent, and she helps a lot of buyers find property. She puts in offers very quickly. Like, remember that last time we did that?
Yep.
And she had exactly 30 minutes, something like that, to put in an offer for an open door home. And you still had to pre-approve the buyer.
Yep.
And you guys got it all done in 30 minutes. It was like crazy
was
because it had to be
definitely-
in by 5. You remember that?
That was intense.
Yeah,
That was
you were
intense.
pacing up and down, and then you were just like typing away with your long nails. And all that. Show everyone your nails. So that's
Oh.
silver for the new year.
Yeah.
So,
Shiny.
okay, so it's 2023, and the buyers are coming back. Now, the last I checked, I don't know if this is true or not, I looked at daily mortgage rates, and it said the mortgage rates are 6.54. And that means it's less than 7%. So buyers are coming back for 2023, and we're really excited. So we need a take from you. What is going to happen in 2023 with the mortgage rates and all that, and buyers coming back?
So, I mean, really the biggest thing that I like to focus on, well, in 2023, I think no one called what happened in 2022. So me even assuming what's going to happen or guessing or predicting what's going to happen in 2023 is as good as the most knowledgeable economist. Oh goodness, what's the word I'm thinking of? Yeah,
The economists.
Goodness,
Economists, yeah.
the most intelligent economist still didn't predict what happened in 2022 with the rates going up 4 points.
Okay, so really it happened, if I'm correct, December 21st, the end of 2021. That's when the interest rates started to go up.
Yeah,
correct?
but there was more of an impact in March. That was like in spring when we started to see. I mean,
March of 22.
Yeah, March of 2022 is when I
Right.
started seeing an increase. And I mean, I was giving calls to borrowers, explaining to them the importance of purchasing now rather than later. And they said, well, wait for the rates to drop. And I think that phrase, wait for the rates to drop, got a lot of people in trouble, mainly because everyone thought 2022 was going to be that year where rates were going to either stay the same or go lower, maybe slightly higher. No one ever predicted that the rates were going to increase to 7%. If they did, they would have been warning us in advance. It didn't. It happened in a matter of weeks where people were losing out on contracts because all of a sudden their payment went up $300. It didn't qualify anymore. And so if anyone is taking any of the warnings or the positive news that's to come in 2023, I feel like, those are the same people who couldn't tell us that it happened in 2022. So
Right.
I like to look at right now, and the right now it's a great time to buy right now. Even if rates did go up in the teens, it would be a great time to buy then. And that's owning a home is going to always be better than renting with 100% interest.
Right, because you have the equity in there. So if you rent a home for a whole year and you're paying $2,500 in the month, at the end of the year, you have no equity. But if you bought, most likely it's going to appreciate somewhat, and you're going to have equity in it at the end of the year. Plus, you own it. You don't have to move out.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about your dogs and who's going to, allow you to rent with 2 dogs and stuff like that. But in 2023, well, the interest rates went up because the government had to do something to put inflation in check. And they did a good job because right now, November and December in Lakeland now, I'm just talking about Lakeland, new listings have dropped.
Yeah.
There was only like, it's like 4.82 difference now in new listings. So new listings are down, and also closed sales are down. I don't have the number in front of me, but that went down too. But the good news is home prices went up for sellers, so that's good news. The good news for buyers is the interest rates are now down to 6.54.
And I think also the good news for buyers is that there's more flexibility with the sellers in closing cost credit. Products are coming back out where, it's a little bit easier to qualify for.
What
But
about the buy downs? Will you explain to buyers what a buy down is?
all right, so there's a common terminology to this. The 2-1 buy down is a popular one. I'm not a big proponent of the 2-1 buy down.
Oh my gosh, that's all I hear on social
Controversy.
media. Okay. Why? Tell us why.
Well, I think it goes on
Well, first define it.
Okay, so 2-1 buy down is where for the first 2 years, your interest rate is a point lower than what it would be if you were to accept the interest rate today. So, for example, if it was 6%, it would be 5%, or it could be where there's a 3-1 buy down where you have a interest rate come down interest rate comes down 3% for the 1 year, or whatever it is. It's lowering your interest rate
For 3 years.
synthetically for
3
those
years.
3
And why
or
do you
2
not
years.
like that? To me, that sounds really good.
Well, because that comes with the assumption that you can refinance, and then you're going to
Well,
get
after
that
3
6%.
years.
Well, sure, but what if you can't refinance in 3 years? Now you're
Because
stuck
why?
with the payment.
Because why couldn't you?
If there's not enough equity, you lose your job, your score goes down,
Okay,
the
that's
rates are higher then, and now you're stuck with the 6%. or
Okay,
the
but you would have
7%.
been stuck with that 6% if you didn't have the buy down. So you have nothing to lose. The first 3 years, it's reduced. And let's say you can't do a cash refinance.
But you were buying the house, you were signing the documents with the intention that you were going to get out of it. And so people are making the decision like, oh, I can't afford the 7%, so I'm going to do the 2-1 buy down.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, and then it comes out at the end where they can't afford the house to begin with. I mean, there's all kinds of different. I mean, it's very specific to that person. I mean,
But if they can afford the 6.5%,
then it makes sense for them. It's equivalent to an adjustable rate mortgage, is the way I like to look at it, because it does adjust.
right, exactly. But wouldn't it, after the 4th year or after the 3rd year, wouldn't it go to 6.5, or is it based on what the current interest rate is?
It would be what that interest rate was locked in at that time.
Yeah, okay. So,
But the thing is, now there's the 2-1 buy down can only be eligible if the seller commits to buying down those points. So, for example, if
how much does that cost for a buyer?
it could be 2 points, it could be 3 points.
But what does that cost?
If it's a $300,000 house, that's $9,000.
Right. So if the seller gives a credit of $9,000, they can use that.
Right, but see, the thing is that listing agents are now advertising the buy down credit initially on the listing right up front. So what does that mean? That means that they're already baking it into the initial offer.
Well, that's not going to help buyers at all. They have to give the credit
That's my
at
point.
closing.
No,
They can't reduce the price.
Right, exactly. So, for example, a listing agent says, we have a $300,000 house. We would be willing to give you 3% selling concessions.
Right.
Well, I remember the days where you had to beg a listing agent for 3%. Now they're advertising that they're willing to give you 3%. It's because they've already accounted for that 3% to be taken away.
Yeah. They have to, yeah.
So you're really paying for this buy down. The buyer is still paying for this buy down because what really needs to happen is not only do they need to give the 3% seller credit, but then they need to give the 3% that they would have gotten if there wasn't a buy down involved, because that's the true cost of the house. It's kind of like when agents say, oh, buyer agents are free. They're not, because the listing agent already accounted for that the buyer agent was going to be involved. So that's where it's like, okay, so the seller concessions aren't really seller concessions. It's just the buyer is financing that buy down over 30 years. That $9,000 that could have been shaved off the price. That's why I'm saying, like, accept the rate that you qualify for today. If the seller pays for your credit, that's great. But a 2-1 buy down is really particular to that person. I wouldn't say that it's a marketing technique to disguise that the rates are in the 6s. Because when you can say I have a 4% interest rate with a 2-1 buy down, okay, now you're going, oh, I have a 4% for how long? And then when it does become 6%, can you refinance? No, because you got, you
have to go back to the original.
Now, did you factor in the cost of the refinance?
Well, I think.
Did you factor in the cost that what if there isn't an appraisal
I think
that comes in your favor?
Well, I think buyers are in the homes, I think the average now is 7 to 10
7 years.
It may be a little bit more now since COVID and all that. But
Actually, I brought this up to a client the other day who said, "Why should we do a 2-1? Why shouldn't we do a 2-1 buy down?" And I said, "They say marry." Oh, this is a very popular, overused real estate terminology, which is marry the house, date the rate.
Yep.
Divorce is 50%. So what if you don't like the house that you're living in, and now you've committed to buying down the interest rate? You put all this money down, and now you can't even get out of it.
right.
So,
I
and then
think-
what if you're stuck with the rate? Now you're
Right,
stuck
because
with this
there's
rate.
No,
Yep.
And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but there's no guarantee that the interest rates are going to go down in the next 2 years. We don't know. It depends on inflation. If inflation stays checked, then the mortgage rates will go down. But if inflation still is going crazy, then you're still going to have high interest rates.
I had a client the other day who said, "I want to wait for the interest rates to come down." And I said, "Okay." I've heard that. And when I heard that, it didn't pan out for those buyers, right? That was in 2020, 2021. Oh, it's 3%. I want that 2.5.
Oh my gosh.
I want that 2.25.
What are they
Okay,
doing now?
that's fine. You know, if you want to wait for that, that's great. But imagine if they had executed when it was
They
that
would
low.
have so much appreciation in their home.
Right.
It's
And not even need to worry about it. And then the biggest thing though is what was I getting at? 2.7. Goodness, hold on. I was getting there.
the convenience of not renting but buying and not waiting for that interest rate to go
Oh,
down.
that's where I was having the conversation with the client. Sorry. He said, "I want rates to come down." So if you look at rates from 1980 until now, in 1980,
Wait. Were you around in? Wait, were you around in?
I was born in 2000,
1990?
everyone.
No, were you born? What did you say?
2000 was
Okay.
my year of birth.
that was the year. Wow, my gosh, 91 for me.
Baby Jesus.
I see that 1980 interest rates were in the teens. Now, imagine if your parents didn't buy a house in the 1980s because they wanted to wait for the interest rates to come down like they were in 2020. They would have gone 30 years. They would have gone
imagine.
30 years for the rates to come down, and they would have missed out on 30 years of equity. So I explained to him, I said, it's not about the rate environment. It's not about home values environment. It's about whether or not you qualify to buy a house. If you are eligible to buy a house, buy a house. If you
And
can't buy a
it
house,
instead of renting.
right, because if you're gonna spend $2,000 of rent or $2,000 of mortgage, what's the difference?
Equity. Equity is the difference.
Equity is the difference.
Well, the
interest rate
interest rate on
deduction is the
renting is
difference.
A lot more.
The fact that you have, so many
Think
different.
about how much you're
benefits to
paying
it.
for rent, and you could be in a home right now. And then, can you address the fact that buyers are like, "Well, I could afford last year. I could afford $450 for a home. Now I can only afford a $375,000 home." Well, what if you said to the buyer, "Do the $375, and then in 3 years or whatever, or 5 years, sell it and go back once the interest rates go down and get the bigger home." But meanwhile, don't rent while you're waiting.
Yeah, I mean, securing your position in the game is better than watching it on the sidelines.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people are doing. Oh, I'll wait till I can buy, or I'll wait till, like, getting an x-ray and getting a diagnosis and finding out how you can get into a house starts with getting pre-approved. Just because you're getting pre-approved doesn't mean that you need to sign a contract the next day and then close and wire the funds the next. So getting pre-approved, it could be a 6-month out process. It could be a 9-month out game plan. Like I spoke with a client 9 months ago that you recommended. We explained that this is the scenario. You need to get your score here. You need to get this amount of down payment. You need to have this type of income, and then we can talk. And
Because they need to know. Get pre-approved now. Let's say you don't want to buy until July. Get pre-approved now, so if there's an issue, you would be able to address that issue and say, "Hey, you need to pay off that credit card, or you need to do this, whatever." So you'll be ready in July. So you don't get pre-approved just because you want to buy right now.
so most of the time when clients find out that they are eligible, the initial conversation starts out, "Oh, I was planning on buying in 6 months when my lease ends." That's the classic, "I'll wait in 6 months when my lease ends." And then when they find out they're pre-approved, I explain to them, you have the best case scenario right now where you have the luxury of staying in rental while you're shopping for a house in this market,
Right.
you're not going to be pinned against the wall when your lease is up and having to make a rush decision. So take the next 6 months to start shopping for a house. Look at your contract. Is there a sublease clause? Do you have an exit plan that you can leave 6 months earlier? Because what if I was able to tell you that instead of spending $2,000 in rent for the next 6 months, that if you and I started working together in 30 to 45 days, you could be in your home and spending the same $2,000, if not a little bit more, maybe a little less.
Right.
But if you had the same payment and if not a little bit more, knowing that it's your mortgage, that it's your own home, that it's a forced saving plans in a sense, you would see a lot more people go in that direction.
Okay. Well, I think this was a lot of information.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us. You have to come back. Maybe
My pleasure.
every once a month or something and talk
Yeah.
about what's going on. We would love to have you.
I do want to wrap up with one
Yeah.
quote that I find super helpful. You're
hear it.
not saving by waiting to save.
Right.
You're not saving by waiting to save.
Yep.
What I mean by that is that most people are saying, I need 20% down to buy a house, or I'll wait till I have 20%. Myth,
What's the percentage, the average down payment?
1 to 2.
No.
3.5%.
No. Well, I heard the average is 6%. That's what
Oh,
buyers
that's
put
what-
down.
oh,
6%.
I mean, sure.
That's
But,
what I heard.
It's kind of a
The
random one.
myth is they think they have to put 20% down, but
Yeah,
it's only 6%.
well, the minimum is 3.5.
Right.
I mean, if I could have 0%, if I was a veteran, I'd be happy. And if I qualified for USDA, I'd love that. But I mean, 0%, is the lowest on the totem pole, you can bring to the table. And then you have 3.5% with FHA. You can go as low as 3% with conventional. But anyway, going 20% is not 100% necessary, especially if you're trying to save for that 20%.
Right.
Because how much equity have you missed out on waiting to save 20%?
Right. Exactly.
Very
And
true.
plus, and final, average equity earned in Florida, in the state of Florida, in Q3 of 2022, 2022 Q4 hasn't come out yet. 2023 is $77,000 in
Can
equity.
you imagine
Wow.
that? That's
So imagine putting 3.5% down and then getting an average return of 77K back in your pocket.
Yep.
So
That's awesome.
I hope this was
All
helpful, guys.
right. Thank you, Jonathan. Maybe next time you come, we can talk about VA loans.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Woohoo. Well, we'll
right.
talk about all of them. But
And,
yeah.
and don't forget to subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Follow us. We'll be back next week.